Thank you, thank you. I'm going to try and be brief because I've got quite a few slides, but I'm going to be sweeping through them. Yes. So I was asked by Professor Richard Trembrandt and Professor David Van Hill to come here and present to you today because they sadly couldn't make it. So the study, East London Genes and Health, was set up in 2015. When Professor Richard Trembrandt was actually vice principal at Queen Mary University, where I work, and Professor David Van Hill, in collaboration with him, the co-investigator as Professor of Genetics. So very, very briefly, just to say that the reason why the study was set up is clearly because we wanted to look at population scale of genomics. So we wanted to go from the first approach that was identifying a rare phenotype and characterize the genotype, to go from looking at the genotype first in large samples, large population sample, and then ask questions about the phenotype. So in this way, we hope to better understand the conditions and tailor the treatment. And of course, it was going to be very useful to identify specific gene function. So increase the kind of accelerate the precision medicine pathway. So it was quite clear from large-scale sequencing that the genome has many what we call loss-of-function mutations. So mutation that cause the genes basically they don't work, they're knockouts. And also that these genes were much more, these loss-of-function mutations were a lot more present in population with close parental relatedness. So the study was set up in East London in South Asians. Actually, South Asians, I should be more precise, which is mainly British, Pakistani, and Bangladeshi population. In East London, because we identified that there was a great health deprivation and a very, very low life expectancy compared to other parts of London and the UK in general. Just going to quickly show you this slide, which shows in red the data that indicates that the index is significantly worse than England average. So these are the 5 East London boroughs. The population is also quite young and has a very, very high prevalence of diabetes and cardiovascular disease. South Asians are very often there tends to be white first causing marriage, and so high parental relatedness. They're a very, very understudied group for genetic research. We wanted to set up this center in East London because it's where there is a high presence of this population, and so it was easier to get to them and ask them to come back for follow-up studies, which is what we would like to do. There is also excellent electronic health records in East London, and we have access to Bart's NHS Trust, which has over 2.5 million patients. So the East London Genes and Health is, as I said, a population genomic medicine in South Asians. It was set up in 2015 with a Wellcome Strategic Award, looking at adults, British, Bangladeshi, Pakistani. We don't have any disease or health inclusion criteria, which is critical for our high number of recruits, I would say. We target 100,000 volunteers, which is clearly to connect with Genomics England, the Genomes Project numbers. We hope to have so the ethics is for 20 years, and we hope to have this set up as UK Biobank and other bioresources to have other people to apply and use it and access it. We have collected saliva samples and DNA, where we extract the DNA. We have e-health records connections, primary and secondary care, and we ask the volunteers permission to recall them for other follow-up studies up to 4 times a year. So where we are now, we've recruited over 26,000 people in over 2.5 years. So this is in 5 East London boroughs. We have used also secondary care, so Bart's Health sites, although majority, about 80% of recruitment has been done in GP practices. So we have over 60 GP practices that have worked with us on and off. Clearly, we are a small team recruiting, so we're not in 60 practices every day. And also, we have exome sequenced about 4,000 subjects. This is done in collaboration with the Sanger Institute, actually. And so we are prioritizing samples coming from Pakistani population and samples where the volunteers have self-stated their that their parents were related by blood. We hope to have the data, as I said, open access on the website. We have them open access on the website. And we also have attracted funding from MRC, from HEFKI and Bar's Charity. And we have managed to open, well, I'll show you in a bit, the Center for Population Genomic Medicine in Whitechapel. So very quickly, just to tell you why it's been so successful, we think because we kept the study, the consent part extremely simple for the volunteer side. As I said, we only ask some personal details. And the only question that we ask is, do you have diabetes, yes or no? It's down at the bottom on the right-hand side. And were your parents related by blood? And do you consider yourself, do you consider your health and well-being to be poor, average, and good? And that's just an indication for us to see whether, how many people will be able to recall. We specifically do not target clinics in secondary care that's for that reason, because we want to be able to recall people. And ideally, this in primary care will be getting people that are perhaps a little bit younger that they'll be benefiting from the study results. It is critical for us to work with the practices. As I was talking to our colleagues during the coffee break, it's critical not only to work with GPs, but also with practice nurses and practice managers, which is sometimes it's just the right people that you need to get through, really. We ask minimum work from the practices, so we don't actually ask them to do any mailing out, any phone call, any paperwork. We only ask for a stall in their waiting room, and we ask for consent to approach the subject, patients waiting, basically. We have all the staff that is recruiting is multilingual staff, sometimes even 5 languages they speak. So they are of the right culture, the right faith. All the information we give out are in Bengali and Urdu, but sometimes it's just an oral explanation of the study. We do lots of community engagement. We partner with Social Action for Health, which is a community partner. They also have a lot of connection with mosques and faith leaders that really, really help getting the message across that this study will be important for the local population as well as for the greater communities. We have set up a community advisory group that will help us set up some priorities for where we want to go with our scientific research. We have a Twitter account and a website. And we do lots of science education with the Center of the Cell, which is Public Engagement Center in Queen Mary. As I said, this is what we call the phase 1 of the study, so recruitment. What we said phase 2 of the study is that we are setting up this Center for Population Genomic Medicine, which is basically going to be the heart of the bioresearch, where we're going to have all the samples, and we're going to have other people from academia and industry, and anyone that would want to apply. There would be an application process, very much like UK Biobank. Anyone with their own ethical approval, their own funding, they can come and work with us. As East London Genes and Health scientific expertise, we would like to recall about 15,000 volunteers for what we call a cardiometabolic assessment. So again, very non-invasive tests to target the disease that are a priority for the local population. This is very much depending on funding. We are applying to the Wellcome Trust. We're also trying to work with pharma industry to set up some sort of consortium or even decide to work one by one with pharma industry to, at the end, as you were saying, accelerate drug discovery programs and make sure the drugs get to the market quickly. I just wanted to give you a very quick data about the East London Genes and Health volunteers. So the DNA that we have extracted, you have numbers of exome sequenced. Majority of the volunteers have an NHS number valid and available. What can I tell you about this? About 20% of them have diabetes, nothing new in that. About 18% are related by blood. Something I wanted to show you. So this is basically the connection with the primary care data. I think one of the issues that we're going to have to go through is when we look at the data is data are We need to deal with missing data. We need to deal with data that are not necessarily taken as research standards. So they're collected, what we call research standard with SOP and so on, by GP, by secondary care. So it's a different kind of research, longitudinal cohort type of research. Again, very quickly, just to say thank you to all our partners and funders, and of course to the recruitment team, which is amazing and doing an excellent job. Thank you.